Who worries about money? Yeah. So whether it's making your pay last to the end of the month, whether you have concerns about debt, whether you have a change in your family circumstances, or you're planning your savings, or an unexpected change in your career, everyone at some point worries about money. And money worries aren't necessarily just related to your age, your stage of life, which generation you're in, what your friends are doing, or anything like that. We're all different, and money worries are a very personal thing in many ways. So money worries aren't necessarily just related to having enough to live on, and it's something that Daniel mentioned in his presentation earlier as well. It could be that money is impacting your day-to-day mood. It could be that money is keeping you lying awake at night. It could be that you're using money to gap fill for something else in your life, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who's ever indulged in a bit of retail therapy. Or it could be that you've jumped into financial commitments with someone else or on your own, and then wondered why you did that. So all sorts of things that you can worry about in relation to money. In working with our clients, we at Like Minds, we are interested in how do we actually make an impact for people regardless of someone's actual financial circumstances. So how do we help them improve their financial well-being regardless of their situation? So what is financial well-being? Well, everybody's talking about financial well-being, and I think it's pretty well understood in our industry how it can impact your people and how it can impact your businesses. In our world, financial well-being is used to describe all sorts of things that we provide in an employee benefits package, be those pensions and savings, debt management services, employee assistance programs, all sorts of things like that. And I think all of those things absolutely form part of your well-being, of your financial well-being strategy. But for us at Like Minds, it's kind of broader and more personal than that. Financial well-being is just about feeling good about your money. And now, obviously, to some extent, that is related to having enough. But as Daniel was pointing out earlier on, past the point of having enough, it doesn't necessarily make you feel any better. So money can impact us in ways that don't always make us feel good. Now, I'm sure that today and at previous events that you've been at, you will all hear lots about the business case for financial well-being. So I don't want to spend time today telling you things either that you already know or that you will have heard somewhere else. However, there was one particular piece of insight that we thought it was useful just to flag today as a kind of people and business, a people impact really for your business. Research commissioned by Mind told us that 30% of people cited money as their biggest cause of stress. That was the second biggest cause of stress identified by people in the UK. The first biggest cause of stress, I don't know if you know, guess, but was work. And the third biggest cause of stress for people was their health. In addition to that, we know that nearly 12 million working days are lost to stress every year. And, you know, not to mention the fact that you could also have people at work who have concerns, who are worried about money, but are still in the workplace and perhaps not being as productive as they might be because of it. But it's not just the impact on people that helps create the business case for addressing financial well-being. There are other considerations that form part of the business case for financial well-being, and Paul's going to talk about those.
Thank you. So Jude's talked about the impact on people. As employers, how we manage that requires us to recognise what else is going on in the workplace. And we'll be familiar with lots of these things in the boxes. Broadly, I'd categorise them into two areas, sort of society and behaviours and product and rules. If I take my dad, he worked for a retail bank all his career, had a modest career, started there at age 16. Now we're going back a while, just to illustrate this and some of the points about developments in technology. This was back in the day when, believe it or not, if you needed to do a bank transfer between one high street bank and another, you needed 2 people and 3 bits of equipment. A wheelbarrow to carry the money and a whistle and truncheon in case someone tried to pinch it. Absolutely true. He worked there through till he was in his 50s, then he retired on a full final salary pension. He'd bought a house when housing costs were low, had a subsidised mortgage. Roll forward a generation, midway through my career, I've only had 4 jobs, so not that many. Lucky enough to go to university before graduate tuition fees were around. Lucky enough to be able to buy a house when houses were a bit more expensive, but absolutely really easy to borrow money. But 4 jobs, all DC pensions, realistically I expect to retire maybe around 70. Roll forward to the millennial generation and we're all familiar with more of the challenges that they face around tuition fees, graduate debt, getting on the housing ladder and all the other things, and potentially some other positive new trends like higher career mobility, etc. But it's a very different workplace and that's changing. And the other one's about products and rules. So we see all the changes that come through. We've said here, rapidly changing legislative. Instead of rapidly, you could say permanently changing legislative environment. You've got pension tax rules changing all the time, positive things like more flexibility, tougher things like higher levels of tax. And you've got new products coming in, things like lifetime ISAs, debt management solutions. Generally, individually, all really good. But if you look at it collectively, often quite complicated for people to understand. And now we're in a room full of quite enlightened people, so many may well argue when they look at their own organisation. But generally, I find that as employers, we're slow to adjust to these changes. So the market and the environment and product rules move much faster than we adapt our own benefit strategy. The options we provide aren't necessarily always relevant, due to lack of value for benefit spend. And particularly see this with larger employers, where you've got a pensions function, a pay function, share function. The sort of communication and delivery of those aren't necessarily joined up. And put together, that leads to sort of loss of optimal outcomes. There's great things that people could do, but they don't do. So that's enough context. We were now just going to quickly cover the 3 key things that we think are necessary to introduce a financial wellness program and make it work well. Number 1, work with your employees to understand the needs, really find out what matters to them. Secondly, sweat your benefits design. There's a huge amount of value that only you can unlock as their employer, so make that work. And thirdly, don't let the sort of delivery framework be a barrier to access. And we'll give you some quick examples on all of those. So Jude's going to take us through some research that Like Minds have done around working with people to understand their needs.
So we've been working with our friends at the School of Life on a research project to help us work out the best way to help our clients with their financial wellbeing strategies. For those of you who haven't come across the School of Life before, they are kind of dedicated to using emotional intelligence to make our lives better. So kind of life, love, and the pursuit of happiness kind of stuff. The stuff that we don't learn at school. And they do about 17,000 classroom events in London every year alone, and they have about 2 million YouTube subscribers. So they're definitely worth checking out if you get a chance to have a look at some of their content. So working with the School of Life, we talk to people, we talk to friends in pairs, and we also surveyed over 1,000 people from age 16 up, from all walks of life, and asked them about their plans for the future, their hopes, their life stories, their feelings about money in particular, and why they felt that way. And there was a lot of findings came out of the report, but there was 2 key findings that I'm going to share with you today that I think give us some clues on how to deliver really powerful financial wellbeing communications programs. Firstly, our research helped us identify 4 key stages of life, and those were interesting in themselves in that they told us a little bit about how people live their lives today and what their priorities are. But what we thought was most interesting about that was the extent to which these different groups of people could see into the future. And the extent to which, I guess, they could sort of visualise and imagine what they would be doing in the future at different stages of their lives. And it turns out we're not very good at imagining the future at all. Our horizons are actually pretty limited. We don't expect our lives to change all that much in the future, although when you talk to people, they can all sort of recall and tell stories about how much their life has changed in the past at all different stages of life. So it just tells us a little bit about the fact that people actually find it really difficult to visualize themselves long into the future. So what that means is that you end up with this sort of situation where for each stage of life, each person has what we're describing as a kind of foreseeable future, the part of their life where they can actually plan and they have some ideas around it. And also for 3 of the key stages of life there, we also have an unforeseeable future, a part of our future that we can't imagine. We don't have ideas around it, but interestingly, we do have emotions around it. We do know what we want it to feel like in that unforeseeable future, but we can't often describe exactly what our plans are going to be. And for us as communicators at Like Minds, that is really interesting to us, because if someone has emotions about something that's far out into the future, we can tap into that. And if we can tap into those emotions in the communication work that we're doing, we think we can influence how people act, feel, and behave around those. So it's important for us to focus on how we address the needs that people have now and in their foreseeable futures, but also try to sort of inspire their thinking a little bit about what their long term might look like. And I'll show you how we're bringing that to life in a digital context in a minute. But just to sort of sum that up, our industry for many years has been trying to educate and inform people around benefits, pensions, finances generally. But the problem is, for the most part, we tend to educate and inform people before we've really engaged them, before we've really tapped into that emotion, and before we've really kind of sparked some ideas about how they might, what their future might look like. So we think we need to help people connect positively with their future selves to be able to sort of imagine what that might look like. And I guess, yeah, picking up a quote from Robert, just try to inspire people and do for money and pensions what Airbnb did for guest houses globally. Really. So the second piece of, the second really interesting piece in the research was around people's habits. So we asked people whether they considered themselves to be planners or impulsive in different aspects of their life. So sleep, eating, going to the gym, their health, all those sorts of things. And what we found was that those who had developed good habits around their money also tended to have good habits in other areas of their well-being. So they perhaps had good sleep habits, good eating habits. Maybe they went to the gym quite regularly. And we don't think that this is a coincidence. We think that this is a really, really interesting correlation. And also, it kind of puts financial well-being firmly into the overall wellness strategy of a business, as well as being part of the pay, pensions, reward, and benefits agenda. In terms of what it means for how you communicate financial well-being, well, a bit like going to the gym or a bit like eating habits, you're building up small victories, so encouraging small victories over time that can turn into greater achievements that make people feel good about themselves in the future. So just start by flossing one tooth and build from there. So that tells us a little bit about how we might talk to people when we communicate with them. So this is how we're bringing this to life for our clients. And we're doing it in a number of ways, but I wanted to show you one and talk to you about another one today. Firstly, through our digital financial wellbeing portal. So this is a portal of kind of rich content to help people around the topical issues around money, but also some of the emotional issues around money. So everything from decoding and understanding your bank statement to what are the things that you need to consider before you jump in and get a mortgage with someone. So we're trying to cover a whole broad range of topics through the financial wellbeing portal and positioning that in a way that doesn't mean that people feel like they have to ask for help, because we know people don't like to ask for help. So if we can present it in a way that connects with them, but they don't feel like they're asking for help, then all the better. Secondly, we are helping our clients develop what we're calling curated experiences. Now, to try and explain what a curated experience is, it's kind of the love child of a benefits fair, a visit to an art gallery, an afternoon on the psychologist's couch. That, I think. And what that means is that these are kind of installed experiences for our clients at their places of work, where people can kind of be part of those, walk through them almost, understand a little bit about how they feel about money, and hopefully take away from that some really helpful tips and things that they can do next to follow that through in the future. So that's a couple of examples about how we're bringing that research to life and how we're delivering that for our clients, and how we can communicate it. But it's really important to consider not just the communication, but also the benefit design that you need to make sure that you have to cover your financial wellbeing strategies, and Paul's going to talk about that.
Okay, so we haven't got long left. We're just going to go through a couple of examples of things you can practically do. Now you understand what people's needs are, so what can you do within the benefits and reward strategy to start to make a difference to their financial wellness? I'm going to start from the very simple. Just look at the different products that are out there and find out what can you do which will actually meet their needs. Going back to my point earlier about benefit options not always being relevant, there's a lot of innovation in this area, a lot of new products either created by legislation or created by new providers which you can access. Lifetime ISA, debt consolidation, bill savings plans, share incentive plans, and whatever you're doing, look at where you can really add the extra value. So if we just look at pension, for example, we've often seen if you can renegotiate your provider charges, you can reduce them significantly, and that can lead to up to a 20% increase in someone's final pension. They haven't had to do a thing. As an employer, you're leveraging your power to make things better for them. Or through share incentive plans, help higher earners reduce the amount of tax they pay. So just very simple, just looking at different products, but just that's introducing them in isolation. If you want to be more sophisticated, the way you can unlock far more value is if you really integrate something into your reward strategy. So if we take the Lifetime ISA as an example, rather than just introducing it as a sort of self-funded employee option, think about, for the right circumstances, for the right sort of organisation, rather than just offering, say, a 2-for-1 match into pension, you could offer it into the Lifetime ISA. In this example, we've discounted the value of the employer national insurance for the ISA contributions, so it's cost neutral for the employer. And then it's generally marketed as something to help people get a deposit for their first home. It's a savings product which gives you a tax-free capital sum at age 60. You could use that to help fund a mortgage. So in the example numbers here, if somebody had a mortgage repayment of £395 a month, if you switch that to interest only, you'd only need to pay £34 into the ISA as an individual to get the double match from the company, get the government subsidy. In that example, the cost of buying their house has been reduced by 40% from the value you've created as an employer by structuring it in such a way. Not right in all circumstances, but just a quick example of if you integrate something in the right way, you can unlock much more value. The final thing we're just going to talk about is the delivery framework. We often see the best program designs failing through just barrier to access, as I said earlier. How you solve that, it's not necessarily easy, and again, it tends to be very employer specific. I'm just going to put up one quick diagram of how one employer has tackled it through their the architecture they've used. It is definitely a problem. If I look at myself, if my Sky TV breaks, I'll spend 3 or 4 hours on the website and on the telephone to Sky before getting it fixed so I can watch the football. If my energy company asks me to submit my meter readings, I want certainty. I don't want a big bill because they've been guessing. The first hint of an obstacle, or getting on the website or entering a reference number, and I give up and let them guess. And it can be true with some of the things that we can introduce within the reward strategy to help people around financial wellness. It's really in their interests, but sometimes it's not the most engaging thing to do. So whatever you do, think long and hard about how can you prevent those barriers to access to achieve the success that you need. So we've quickly covered the 3 main steps that you should be thinking about addressing if you're going down a financial wellness path for the first time. And Jude's just going to finish on how you might start.
Yeah, where do you start? So I would say, firstly, consider the broad goals of your financial wellbeing challenge, if you like. So where are you as a business? What's going on in the business? What is happening with your employees? What kind of feedback are you getting from people around financial wellbeing? And what are the indicators that are telling you that you need to perhaps address this? So I would start there. Secondly, really think about how you inspire people. Think about talking to people's unforeseeable futures. And don't ask people to ask for help, because we know that people don't like to ask for help. Thirdly, integrate financial wellbeing into your benefit design. So using some of the simple or more sophisticated strategies that Paul has already talked about. And as Paul says, deliver it over multiple channels and make it easy to access so that people can access it simply and act on it quickly as well. And finally, think about how you deliver your financial wellbeing communication in a way that's focused on your needs and also the needs of your employees, so that what you do can connect with your goals, your values, and your brand. Thank you.
But perhaps we'll just squeeze in one question that's come up that's really popular on our poll. And you've partly answered it, but maybe just to show you the interest here, how can you get younger staff interested in saving for retirement when we also keep telling them they'll never save enough to retire?
Yeah. So I think that that is a part of a bigger challenge, which is just about engaging younger people around money, frankly. And I think the way that it is best addressed is between a balance of helping them with the real challenges that they have now, and helping to therefore build up a level of trust and a conversation with them and a kind of shared goal, if you like, that will engage them as and when they are ready to start having this conversation. I think, it might be quite controversial to say, but I don't think that we're going to get very far if we just keep attempting to ram it down their throats. It hasn't necessarily worked in the past, and there's nothing necessarily to say that it will work in the future. So I think we have to make it easy for them to do something about it. And there are strategies that you can do around that where people can do something and walk away and leave it. But also we have to help them with the challenges that they're having today so that they understand that their employer is actually listening and understands what the problems they've got. And part of your benefit strategy can help address that as well, can't it, Paul?
That's right.
Great. Thank you very much.